So I want to talk about this Shaq Dwight Howard thing because I don't know why. Basically, Shaq super downplayed Dwight Howard's accomplishment, where Dwight was super emotional on Instagram, saying follow your dreams and never give up, and pretty inspirational stuff for a guy who's been in the league for a long time and all that stuff. And Shaq just comes in on some shut the hell up, you didn't do anything type of mess. And I mean, the first response I have is like, what the hell, dude? Like, what did Dwight Howard ever do to Shaq? I mean, I know Shaq had some sort of beef or whatever with Dwight back when Dwight was a star player, but like, really? How old is Shaq? Isn't Shaq like 45 at this point? This is something that a 12-year-old does. I mean, hell, Charles Barkley and Draymond have had their back and forths, but when they see each other on actual television, they're professionals and they're mature adults about it. And based on this, I don't know if Shaq can do that. I mean, we all know that Shaq gets super defensive the moment that he starts bantering with Chuck and everything, and, you know, that's pretty harmless stuff. But this is more of, like, genuine hate. Like, this makes me think that Shaq is just thinking about Dwight Howard in his day-to-day. I mean, obviously Shaq was threatened by the Dwight Superman thing, and that in and of itself was weird, because when you compare that to, let's say, Reggie Miller, right? When Ray Allen broke Reggie Miller's three-point record, Reggie was the first one to congratulate him. He's not threatened by other guys, but for some reason Shaq is. And the weird thing, too, is that no one thinks Dwight is better than Shaq. So it's like, what do you even have a reason to be threatened for? I mean, you shouldn't be anyway. But if you're going to be, wouldn't you pick someone who's actually better than you? And this is not the first time that Shaq has done something like this. He also did it when Luka hit that buzzer beater against the Clippers and had the 40-something points or whatever. Shaq was downplaying it and saying, well, I've seen that before. And once again, it's like, what the hell, dude? What's so wrong with giving somebody credit when they do something really well in the NBA? It's just weird. The other thing, too, is that Shaq was saying that Dwight didn't do anything, which is wrong. I mean, Dwight gave the Lakers, 20 minutes a game during the regular season, and he also played a big role against the Nuggets when he defended Jokic, and I mean, Dwight, for the playoffs overall, averaged 16 minutes a game, which obviously is not anywhere close to being the top guy on the team, but clearly he still made a difference for them. And so this idea that he didn't do anything according to Shaq, it makes me think, is Shaq even watching these games? Is Shaq not good at watching basketball? I mean, just because you're a player doesn't inherently mean that you're better at analyzing what's going on. I mean, how many former players have become coaches and then it was revealed, oh, they actually aren't as smart as we may have thought so? The most recent example that I can think of is Jason Kidd, where his defensive strategy was basically try to stop everything. And he also made it clear to Jabari Parker that he didn't want him shooting threes and weird things like that. So yeah, I guess another thing to think about is, while I do think Shaq has some good nuggets on inside the NBA sometimes, in terms of like the perspective of being the top guy on a team and having to fit in, but at the same time show when it's like, all right, guys, give me the damn ball and let me go to work and that sort of thing. But I also feel like Shaq mainly just sees things from a star player's perspective. And so to him, it's like, well, if you're not dropping 20-something points a game, he might just not really see that you're doing anything. I mean, based on what he said about Dwight here, how else am I supposed to interpret that? And I guess this leads into another thing, which is that a lot of former players are just really salty about the modern NBA sometimes, and it's really weird. And this is something I've talked about a little bit. I don't know how it happened, but there's just this belief that basketball got worse over the last 30 years, as if human beings haven't made strides as athletes and all that stuff. And I feel like this thing that Shaq is saying here, it kind of comes from that sort of energy. I mean, this is partly why Allen Iverson is so well liked, because the guy's not a salty former player like Shaq or Oscar Robertson or whoever else. I just remember Oscar Robertson saying, to stop Steph Curry, you just have to get up on him. Like, listen, man, when former players are saying that sort of thing, we should never assume that because the guy played in the NBA, that he knows what he's talking about. But anyway, when did this whole back in my day energy start happening around the NBA? I don't know, to be honest. I don't think I'm old enough to pinpoint when it began. It probably was always happening. But I think about what Stephen A. Smith said about the LeBron MJ thing, and it's not even really about the LeBron MJ comparison. Like, yeah, I have LeBron over MJ, but if you have MJ over LeBron, that's fine. I don't think it's some crazy take or anything. But Stephen A. was like, well, LeBron can never be the best player ever because he played in the softest era ever. And it's so dismissive, and again, I'll use the term, it's so back in my day-esque, and it just has such a lack of appreciation for how basketball has changed. There's so much more shooting, and there's so many guys who can go off the dribble, and it forces the defense to have to stretch out more, and now you have to help out in the paint, and then you got to close all the way out to the three-point line, and it just requires so much more athleticism and IQ defensively, and I mean, we've got guys pulling up from 35 feet and stuff, and it's like kind of normal at this point. But apparently none of that matters, because it doesn't look like how basketball was 40 years ago. 4 decades. And I know that was a Stephen A. Smith tangent, but I do think the energy that Shaq was putting out was similar to the one Stephen A. was putting out. So what's the gist of this whole thing? I don't know. Can old people stop hating on basketball? Like, I mean, with Shaq, it's like more personal. Like, bro, this is like Dwight Howard didn't hurt you in any way, man. The guy won a title, and you've somehow found a way to downplay it. I don't know. Can I just point out that the longer Shaq has been in the limelight since he retired, some of the things that happened in his career don't become as surprising. For example, his famous "I got hurt on company time, so I'll rehab on company time" line, or just the whole thing with him and Kobe in general. I mean, I still feel like we don't know the strict details of that whole thing. I can remember something about a meeting between Karl Malone and Gary Payton and Shaq and Kobe and Phil Jackson and Phil's book, but I mean, when I see Shaq say things like this, like, how am I not supposed to think that Shaq was just jealous of Kobe sometimes stealing the limelight? And obviously the Lakers chose the right guy to keep long term. Of course, part of it was age, but I can't help but think there was more stuff like this going on behind the scenes. Anyway, that's it. I don't think Shaq's a bad guy or anything, but he's just insecure and thinks that everything he says is like super important. And for whatever reason, it seems to be a common, I mean, not super common. It's not like every retired player thinks like this, but it's certainly more than a few, so yeah.